What up, y'all? This is Gus from GusVillaJewelry.com. I don't know why I always put the Gus Villa Jewelry as if the link was already not in the description. I don't understand why I do that.
Gus Villa Jewelry.
This is episode 4. By the way, if it ends up being a wrong episode, whatever, now you guys can correct it later. It's always the roughest couple of minutes in the beginning, but let's just get through it. So today's guest, without further ado, let me give everyone in the audience that's listening to this, whether you're in your car, whether you're at work, doesn't matter. I want to give this the proper introduction because I've thought about this introduction a couple of times before I started the podcast. And I want to do its due justice because at the end of the day, it's something that I'm going to re-listen to. And I want it to be like, okay, cool. Yeah, this is the way I wanted it to do it. So this guest that I have here, as you guys know, I am a jeweler down here in downtown Miami. I handmade Cuban link chains. I do all this, yada, 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 whatever. And you're probably listening to this because at some point you may have seen me on Instagram. You may have seen me everywhere, on some sort of social media platform. And you clicked on this thinking that you were going to get someone who makes jewelry, someone to talk about this shit. But the reality is I don't really wanted that as far as my podcast goes. So I want to talk to people that are interesting. I want to talk to people that I find can bring value to your life, whether you are a bagger at a Publix or whether you are, an owner of a business with 1 million employees. So it may not necessarily correlate with your everyday life, and you can't be like, okay, well, he's gonna, or the person I'm bringing on is gonna bring some sort of intrinsic value that way. But there's gonna be someone that you're gonna be able to relate to. So this next guest that I have on, good friend of mine, I would consider him a really, really good friend of mine. He is a music producer. He is a lyricist. He is someone who's going to put things into perspective where regular people in the industry, specifically that we live in now, aren't speaking the way he is. And you're going to quickly realize that. And he is a great mind that I admire myself. And I'm not just saying this because it's a podcast. I'll say it off the podcast, just talking to him. You're going to see the way he breaks things down, and we're going to speak to him and ask him questions that I think you're going to find great value to. So whether you are that bag boy or you are an entrepreneur with a bunch of employees in your company, his name is Richy. He is a Miami artist. He is bringing a new wave to this very sound that is coming out of the 305. So without further ado, Richy Rich, welcome to the podcast, my guy.
Appreciate you for having me, my brother. Thank you so much. Not just for the opportunity, but for the friendship and for always being a real one, my brother.
Thank you, bro. Thank you, bro. Thank you for taking time out of your day to come out here. And, I don't want this to be one of those things where it's like, okay, you guys, everyone's an artist. Everyone says that they're an artist when they talk to someone on a podcast and like they're an up-and-coming whatever. I specifically chose you because I do know a lot of people that are in the industry, and I do know a lot of people that call themselves artists, and at the end of the day, it's not something that they do. So I specifically think I wanted to speak to you because of the different type of way that you break down certain situations and you make them so relatable. So I'm going to tell a story afterwards, but I like to start the podcast by showing people not only who you are, but I like to start from the very beginning. So give me how you got into the industry from the very beginning. Like, put it this way. If you were dancing Sábado Gigante songs in your crib and that's how you knew you were going to become an artist, that's where I want you to start.
Okay. Let me see. I would have to say I remember being a kid and there was a wave of music at the time that was Jay-Z, Ludacris, Nelly, Mobb Deep, 50 Cent, Rick Ross, Lil Wayne, Drake. I grew up, before making music, I was a fan. You know what I'm saying? Full blown. Like, I used to be excited to listen to mixtapes and be excited to listen to, for example, Lil Wayne albums or Drake albums or Ross albums or mixtapes. And it got to a point, bro, where at some point I was like, man, I wish I could do that myself. you know. And I started doing it more on a just to have fun tip and to entertain myself tip. And because one likes to make music, but it wasn't something I was taking extremely seriously. But I started, I would say, at about 15 years old.
Walk me through, because right now you're a real polished dude. And if you see his catalog and you show something, it shows that you've been doing this for a really long time. But walk me through those times where it wasn't like that, right? Because you see the end goal and so many times, especially on social media and things like that, where you're like, you know, a golfer, for instance, that guy had to take 1,000,000 swings before that golf swing looked that nice. So what was it like 15-year-old Richy just listening to Jay-Z albums and being like, oh, damn, this is kind of what I want to do?
15-year-old Richy had long hair, so he looked weird. Aside from that,
I'd be scared of you if you had long hair. No, I'm not gonna lie to you.
But nah, 15-year-old Richy was trying to have fun with it. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. I think everybody, when they first start making music, they do it because they enjoy it. You know what I'm saying? And it's something that is in some way, shape, or form challenging, because mentally you challenge yourself to come up with a quality or a good product or whatever you envision that you want to put out. But definitely 15-year-old Richy is nothing like 32-year-old Richy.
Do you remember your first beat?
I don't. Oh, yeah, I do. As a matter of fact,
do you still have it?
I do.
Do you really?
I do. I have to look for it, but it's somewhere, yeah.
What did it sound like?
It was a piano. I played like a piano, and then I threw like drums over it. And it was like an R&B song almost, like something like that. And it was like just trying
like a Hialeah Key Sweat?
I don't even know what I would call it. It was like a Hialeah T-Pain at the time, to be real with you. So yeah, you could just imagine. But nah, it was you're growing, you know what I'm saying? And I like to, in Spanish they say chocar con la pared, you know what I'm saying? I feel like somebody can teach you, but when you have to learn something yourself, you learn it on a whole other level because no one ever had to teach you shit. So
I feel like a lot of people draw their inspiration. You know, usually I've heard of other podcasts or just regular people who talk about music, and you know, you hear these Eminems, or not Eminems, I should say, but like other people that like, oh, I had a strong influence from my parents listening to music. They would play this.
I would say, yeah, I would say that for sure.
Did you have that?
For sure. My dad was super Cuban. And my dad is old school. Like my dad is like, for example, how old are you?
I'm 35.
Okay, how old is your dad?
He's 68.
Okay, I'm 32, and my dad is 76.
All right.
So you understand?
He's almost like 2 generations away from you.
That's what I'm trying to tell you. So okay. I was like, when I would listen to music, it was like a very old school vibe going on in my house throughout my adolescence. You know, now when you live in Miami and you go to school in Miami and you are raised in Miami, you're gonna soak in all of what people are hearing or what is going on at the time. Sure. Which is why I mentioned all those names that I mentioned in the beginning, because in our reality, all of us that are give or take within that same age range, we all experienced that time. You know what I'm saying? So
do you feel that right now, or even the modern, or maybe even when you first started, really, do you feel that you drew from that inspiration, like listening to your, like, because most people just grow up, and it's interesting you say that, most people just grow up with one generation, you know, afraid, like behind them. So in other words, my dad is 30 years older than me, or however, whatever the math works out to be. Maybe he was 32 years old. And that's still a generation where it's relatable. So it's interesting that you say that, because your father was essentially 2 generations ahead of you. So what kind of music did he listen to, and how did 15-year-old Richy, if at all, bring that into his music?
I would listen to, for example, he would listen to bands that are Cuban salsa bands from back in that time, called, for example, La Orquesta Aragón. That's something that's like, Los Bam Bam is the most prestigious salsa band to come out of Cuba. And even that, their golden years is the 80s and 90s. So my dad was born in 1940-something, you know what I'm saying? So when you really go back, there's music from before what we know as like the top of the Cuban world is what my dad took in. So my dad lived the golden years and before the golden years. So I listened to a lot of like old school salsa, timba. It's a lot of like Cuban influence, Cuban music, and the way it ties into what I do now is that's literally what I do now. I do salsa, timba, but I do all of that over rap, trap, and hip hop music, and I try to make it sound like what we love from this side and what we love from the other side too.
It's interesting you say that because, like, I feel like a lot of people in general go through this evolution of life to where,
You end up being your parents.
No, that's it. That's literally where the trajectory of my life. We're like the Progressive or the Geico commercial where we become our parents and we need a coach to like coach us out of it. And so like I find myself even now in my car, like knowing all the music that I do, which I love, I find myself bumping some like really obscure Colombian, like just regional to only like, let's say for instance, Dade County of all of the US type of music. So I tell you that because I want to know, is that something as even you are right now that you can say, oh my God, I drew inspiration from that sound that I heard in a particular record 25 years ago?
I'm going to give you a great one. Not only did I have an influence from those times, but at the same time, I had the privilege of not only making a song or a video, I made an album and a whole CD with Don Dinero. And Don Dinero, I remember being a kid and my dad came home with that CD and he played that shit in my house.
Shut the fuck
I swear,
up.
on everything I love.
He came with a Don Dinero,
and he loved it. Loved it. My dad was going crazy over that shit. And he would play it over and over and over. Here's where it gets crazier. I end up getting in the car with him one day. When we're driving around, they played that shit on the radio. And we were all like, we felt like I don't even know how to explain it. It was like a win for all Cuban Americans, for the urban community that didn't even exist at the time because no one had ever done what he did. You know what I'm saying? He's the first Cuban American rapper to really do something like big.
It's crazy that a lot of people, I think, don't really know the Cuban American struggle specifically here. And because I think I grew up with it, specifically in Miami.
I've been to your country a lot too.
Yeah, yeah.
San Andres, Cartagena, all that stuff.
It's wild to think that there is a whole subculture that I think doesn't really exist, maybe from Tampa, a couple of pockets, very, very small within the U.S., but predominantly here. And as a non-Cuban American, I think it shows that there is this huge market and underworld of Cuban Americans, Cubans that just got here to the U.S., that are essentially bringing all this crazy sounds to the Miami music scene. So as you're growing up, 15-year-old Richy, let's just remove 15-year-old Richy. Now you're like progressing to where you are possibly at right now. As a Cuban American, what do you think that, that special moment you share with your old man? That's crazy. That's an awesome dope. Like what's going on as you're growing up? Is it something that you're like, oh, I'm going to represent for my people? Because I remember when Pitbull came out.
No, to be honest with you, that wasn't always the plan.
Really?
Yeah, I always did like English music. It was always like rap, hip hop, trap music. I tried to, I've evolved and I've changed even who I am as a person. I don't want to put something out that isn't who I am. You feel what I'm saying? And I feel like a lot of people act like a bunch of shit that's not who they really are. You feel me? And I'm over that. I feel like I'm in a phase of my life where I want to put something out that I can play in front of my mom, that I can play at a party with 40 people. I don't want to have a show full of gangsters that are going to shoot up the show. I want a show full of girls and old people that are going to spend money. I'm trying to take this to places that it's never been taken before. And I think that I haven't seen too many people do what I'm doing, to be honest with you. When you really look at the style of music that I'm bringing to the table, when I mean the sound of what I'm doing is the last time you could have really heard something like that. There's been a couple of people that have experimented with it and done it, but as a whole concept, in the sense of an album, in the sense of a whole 10 to 14 songs with videos and everything of just that style. The first air we ever had of something like that was Orichas, you know, which is a Cuban rap and hip hop group too that they made Represent, Cuba. I don't know if you ever heard that song.
Yeah, of course I have. Yeah, of course I have.
And not only did I make this sound, but I also had the privilege of working with one of the original Oricha members. I have one of these songs that's featuring him. So his name is Flaco Pro. He's one of the first Oricha members. And it's awesome. I'm basically making the style of music that I grew up loving with the people I grew up listening to. So this is like, in all reality, it's like a dream come true, bro. I love working with talented people. I love being surrounded by talented people like yourself, like Don Dinero. Nah, you know what you're doing, my brother. You know what you're doing.
I want to ask the question of because right now, and let me piggyback a little bit off what you're saying. When I speak to other people that have been doing this for a while, whether it's, and I'm not even talking about the music industry at this point, I'm talking about in generalities. You talk to like a jeweler who's been dealing with diamonds. I have a very, very good friend who has been dealing with diamonds. He's now like, picture him like 68, right? And you talk to him and he knows exactly what he's going to talk to you about. He knows exactly what it is. And he has an identity because he knows his material so much, 100%. Right? And when I speak to you about what it is you're doing, and maybe this can transform and it's a lucid type of thing where it can maybe today you're doing this sound, but tomorrow you're going to do something else. I think that's the evolution of every artist.
100%.
But at the end of the day, you sound very definitive in what you're doing and that you're comfortable with the identity that you're going with. I want to know a time where you were beginning and you didn't necessarily know that. You were experimenting with different sides. You did a little trap, you did a little hip hop, and that's when I kind of first met you.
100%.
Tell me about how that was. What maybe the insecurity of wanting to fit in with a particular sound, and how you were able to say, you know what, this is it, as opposed to kind of what everybody else is throwing.
That's a really good question, bro.
Thank you. I wrote it right before.
That's a really good question.
Thanks, man.
But I have to say that there was a moment where I was working on, how you said, trap, rap, hip hop music, and how'd you get there? How'd you get there? And then we'll talk about the other part. Well, I got there because a lot of the influence and a lot of the people that I was surrounding myself with and a lot of what I was doing at the time had an influence in my music. I was doing things I wasn't supposed to be doing. I was getting in trouble at school. I was involved in things that I should not be involved in. And it got to a point where, it translates. You start talking about that in your music, and what I'm saying is it's so retarded and contradicting to the end result of what we chase that it got to a point where, to be honest with you, I ended up I say this story a lot in a lot of different interviews, but it was such a crucial moment for me that I sent a message to Don Dinero. And I sent a message to Don Dinero telling him, hey, bro, I remember growing up listening to your shit. And I'm a huge fan of your music, my brother. And I hope that one day I could get the chance to link with you and possibly make something with you and build with you and XYZ. He hit me back. We ended up building and doing everything that I ever thought I could do, to the point that he's taught me the game, my brother. He taught me everything from how to fill out a split sheet, to make sure that I know how to get a contract read properly, to make sure that I'm doing this before that. And he's been a mentor to me, to be honest with you. And he's somebody that I even had a different artist name when I met him. And when I met him...
What was that artist name?
Grizzy, which is why I wear OMG on my Grizzy, which means, I'm working, I'm grinding, I'm doing my thing. So, and that's, I still roll with that because I have the LLC, I have the company. I also have Richy and the Brain, the production company that me and Brainiac have. That all this is thanks to him. He's the one that called me and told me, yo, you got to do this. You got to open this. You got to do this. And he showed me everything that I needed to do to make sure that I'm in a position to win in the event that anything happens.
How I asked this question to a couple of people as well, because I feel that a lot of people that do have some sort of success in anything that they do, regardless of what the genre is, have someone that ultimately kind of coaches them through it, mentors them, whatever the hell word you want to use to do that. So for the people who don't necessarily have a mentor or whatever it is, there are so many, especially in the day that we live right now. Like, I won't use this religious word, but I'll just say it just so that you can understand the concept of what I'm talking about. These false prophets, right? Okay. Everyone that could just say that, oh yeah, I'm an industry expert, I'm doing this and whatever, How did you know at the point that you reached out to him and that was the relationship that you guys built, that was the person that you wanted to follow?
Well, number one, transparency is big for me. I think that a lot of people, like how you say, they like to give you like this false image or this fake picture of something that is something, but it really isn't what they're telling you it is.
All the fucking time.
So to be honest with you, one thing I appreciate with him is that he's very, very, very transparent. And he's always been very like, he'll tell you what he got to tell you. He says it how he has to say it. And I'm one of those people that I rather the message be delivered that way anyway. So, it was like a match made on eHarmony. So, like it was really, Jesus. I wanted to learn, and he's somebody that he has a lot of knowledge to give. Is 20 years in the game. You know what I'm saying? So he's dealt with everybody and been at award shows, been around Daddy Yankee and this guy and that guy. He knows what it's like to take something from nothing and take it all the way there. You know what I'm saying? And that's something that even me sitting here next to you, I haven't had the privilege of doing something like that. And that's the end result. That's the goal. That's what we all chase. You know what I'm saying? And I'm blessed to be surrounded by people that have accomplished their goals. You know what I'm saying? Like, he did it. Domingo is another artist that I've worked with, which is a guy that is on Pana Pana, which is Don Dinero's song that hit big here in Miami. And I was blessed to work with him too. And he's been also somebody that has been key in everything that's going on. And I want to give a huge, like, super shout out to, aside from Don Dinero, which is somebody that was the first person to believe in me and was the first person to give me a chance, is Edika. Edika is somebody that also took a chance on me when he didn't have to. And we have a whole CD that we're about to drop that is on that vibe that we're talking about. It's very Miami. It sounds very Cuban American. It's bilingual, so there's Spanish, there's English, there's a lot of interesting collaborations and people that are considered legends within the salsa realm in the Cuban world. And I feel super grateful just to be a part of something that's so special and is something that's unique, because it's a mixture of what they do and what I do.
I'm going to ask you a question that I think I've been personally curious about, and I want to know kind of usually when you ask these kind of questions, and I tell you this because I want kind of, I'm not trying to guide your answer, okay, but more so I want a real answer. I will tell you, I'll tell the whole audience, Richy and I have been friends for some good time. I wouldn't say we were close friends, but we would say, like, anything that he ever needed, I got him, and everything that I ever needed, he got me, right? So we've been in very intimate situations in the sense of, like, close quarters, him creating, I'm creating, that kind of sense. One time I went to a studio session, I don't know if you remember this, a couple of years ago, and we went to, this artist or whatever, and he was an artist that was kind of, let's just put it how it is. My boy was off the rails, right? He was a little loose cannon, right? And you're going to understand what I'm talking about when I say this. We went to a studio down south in South Miami, and he was there, and he had an artist. Yeah,
now I remember.
Let's get it. Let's get weird.
Oh my
let's
God.
get weird, right?
Wow.
And I remember sitting in the studio, and I had never been around these kind of people, right? And I remember being in
this
like
is an interesting character. I'm willing to talk about this. Let's dive full blown into it.
Yeah. Let's Michael Phelps dive up in this,
this
right?
is a good one.
So we sat there, and I remember you telling me, yo, just close the door behind you. Like, you guys started birding, like, let's get it. And you were like, yo, bro. I remember you telling me, you were like, man, I hate no pictures. And I, at the time, I was like the camera guy, right? And you told me, like, I started seeing this character, this rapper develop, and how you dealt with that particular situation was with insane patience. But at the same time, I sat there and I just looked at you and I was like, dog, this guy is crazy at being able to deal with this particular character, which of course I would have been like, yo, you can go right off and fuck yourself. I'm going to get out of here. Right. So you deal with these types of situations in different types of like artists, which of course are all prima donnas one way or another. No offense. It's just what it is. It's like the wide receiver.
It's the industry.
It's the industry.
I work in.
How in the hell do you manage egos? How do you deal with that? And how do you know that at the end of the day, there's artistry behind that ego and that you got to pull it out?
We're all men, so we all have somewhat of an ego. So even when somebody feels like they've accomplished enough to pull their ego out and slap their balls out because they feel like it, is the same way that I'll pull mine out and be like, well, I don't got to deal with your shit. So if you feel the need to ride out, then you feel me? But to be honest with you, I've always been somebody that I don't like to, how do I put it? A lot of people in rap and hip hop music, they like to act like gangsters because they think that that's cool. You feel me? And I'm not a gangster, my brother. You feel me? I've never been a gangster. I don't want to be a gangster, and that's not something that I project in my music. Now, have I been raised around the street? Do I know what it's like to see things that maybe I'm not supposed to see? I think even you have. I think you have. I think we all have. We've all been around things that we're not supposed to see. It's what you do with that. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like in Spanish, me superé. I was able to grab one side of myself and recognize that I'm either going to continue to go down this path and get nowhere, or I'm going to really get focused on my craft and I'm going to become obsessed with what I do and dive full-blown headfirst into what I do. And that's what I've been doing, my brother. I'm not scared to take a loss. I feel like this is what the game is all about, my brother. We have to chocar con la pared. We have to take a L. We have to do these things.
Is chocando con la pared, meaning like hit your head on the wall, essentially what it
100%.
Is it dealing with people that you don't necessarily want to deal with? Because I put myself in your shoes that night, and I literally said, how the hell, Richie, are you keeping a level head? Because let me paint the picture.
I'm gonna say something that happened that night. Look, that night, homeboy, I'm not gonna say his name to avoid the bullshit, but homeboy ended up going, and there's these yellow poles outside of the studio. They're like yellow concrete poles. And if you know me, you know who I'm talking about. If I'm saying this story right now and you know who I am, you know who I'm talking about. And this individual walked over to these concrete poles that are in front of the studio. Like, you know, these concrete, you know what I'm talking about?
Of course, yeah. They're meant for cars not to hit through
100%.
the yeah.
Okay, well, this guy thought it was a good idea to kick these concrete poles, like whack, whack, as hard as he could. Karate kicks, my brother. And the whole time I'm there standing outside the studio watching this, and I'm like, I don't even know what the fuck to say right now. Like, what the fuck is going on right now?
But that's what I'm saying. How do you go back and make a hit? How do you go back?
No, the song was done already. The song was done already. We had gone just to take video and pictures and bullshit.
Right.
So when we end up showing up and he's kicking all these fucking yellow poles outside, the studio owner comes up to me and is like, yo, tell your boy to stop kicking these fucking yellow poles. That the way that nigga's kicking those yellow poles is gonna break those fucking yellow poles.
Bro, that was an absolute disaster, bro. Let me tell you something, dude. I remember walking into that studio and seeing that. And, you know, being, again, it's that ego, it's that character, it's that prima donna, and you handling it so well and still making a good song.
That's nothing, bro. If I was to sit here and tell you a lot of the other shit that I've gone through with other divas and individuals that I've had to live with, my brother, you'd be surprised.
Give me the craziest one.
The craziest one
Give me, let's get crazy.
The craziest one.
No naming names, just give me the crazy.
I'm not going to name names. This is real shit. I ended up shooting a video, and the video that I shot, everything went smooth, everything was good. This was a long time ago. Long time ago.
It was 2 weeks ago.
But the video that I shot, we ended up finishing the video, and I'm leaving the video. And long story short, this individual's manager ended up contacting me to tell me that they didn't like the fact that at my video I had sandwiches and that there wasn't food.
Wait, hold on.
Wait, but hold on. Not sandwiches. Sandwiches, pastelitos, strawberry, champagne, a cooler full of water, full-blown everything there. And then after that, we ended up going somewhere and I paid for like over 30 people's food, including these people. And they hit me with, I can't believe you had sandwiches at your video.
You know,
real life.
Here's the thing, man. Like, you know, and this is ultimately a beautiful segue into what you live and you, first off, let's let
sandwiches.
Don't let the story go by with how absolutely ridiculous that situation is. And I can't imagine me living through that and having to like still put a happy face, right? Okay, that's number one. Number two.
No, it's cool. I said what I felt.
Yeah.
That's one thing about me is that I'm going to say what I feel. I'm not going to just, you know, even with that other individual. Remember that day you went to go do that?
Sure.
I never saw him again.
Really?
There you go.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't play that shit.
That's what I'm saying. So like in a world, especially
aside from the fact that he's just an inconsiderate person, because anybody that's going to be there doing whatever it is that you're doing and they're not taking what you do seriously, if you don't stand up for your product, for your name, for your brand, for your shit, then who the fuck is going to stand up for you?
Yeah.
So, in my opinion, I think it's not the first or the last time that someone's going to doubt me, that someone's going to put me in a box, that someone's going to treat this with a little less importance than maybe what it deserves. And it doesn't bother me, brother. I'm happy with it. That motivates me. Sometimes that pushes me to do things that I didn't even know I was capable of.
You know, I live in a superficial world in the sense of like my industry is very much so guided by egos and by divas, and just like any other, I think any in the industry, but I think that the jewelry world and the music world have a lot of correlations where you could be like, oh, that happens to me as well, right? And I think that, you know, when I used to do camera work, I used to be a lot of emerging artists were coming out, and I've done a lot of emerging artists that if I would say their name, you would know exactly who they were, and I knew them even at a level to where they weren't so big, right? And what a lot of things that turned me off about that camera work and just being around that kind of people was ultimately the superficial level in which people interacted. There was no realness at all. And I feel that even now in the jewelry world, it happens. You know what I mean? I shake hands with a lot of people that are my good friends, and I shake a lot of hands with a lot of people that I'm just doing it because we're in the industry.
It's no hate, no love.
Exactly. And I think that specifically in your industry,
there's a lot of that.
A lot of, more so than everyone else has to deal with. So tell me about the time when you first were introduced to it. What was the lessons that you learned?
And fuck me up, bro.
And how'd you get there before? By the way, full disclosure, we went to a bar and we had a couple of brews. So we've been sipping a couple of adult juices. But yeah, go ahead and answer that question, because I think it's,
you gotta run it by me again. Forgive me. Don't get me.
How do you deal with the fake bullshit?
Okay.
Without giving you so much fluff, how do you deal with the fake bullshit that happens on an everyday level? I think it only compares to modeling. That's the only place where I could think, modeling or Hollywood, where I could think of how insanely superficial are on a daily basis.
I'd have to say I smoke a lot of weed, bro. I chill, bro. I try to just hang out with the people that have my best interest. You know what I'm saying? And I don't surround myself with anybody else that isn't the same people that I deal with on a regular day-to-day basis.
Do you feel that keeps you level?
I'm going to be honest with you. Aside from the fact that it keeps me level, when you deal with transparent people and you deal with people that are playing the game with you with the cards up, when you run into people that are playing with the cards down, it's transparent.
How did you learn that when you didn't know the industry?
Well, you're bound to trust people that maybe you shouldn't trust. That's just the law of life, because you're gonna be running into people and you have to move with good faith in the hopes of that things are gonna move in the direction that you want them to. But to be honest with you, brother, I don't think there's a way to answer that question, only because there's no way of telling what people would do or people wouldn't do, and there's no way of you guessing right or guessing wrong. I live by a code, and I do right by everybody, and I haven't shit on anyone. I haven't done anything to hurt nobody. No one can pull out anything and say, oh, Richard did this to me and robbed me for $600. You're never going to hear a story like that, because I don't move like that. That's not who I am. So I think when you move with that approach, you run into people that maybe don't have the same approach back, and you're quick to realize it. And you're quick to be like, you know what, bro? I'd rather not. And I try my best to just deal with people that work with a team mentality. I have a team. Everybody knows their role. Everybody knows what they do. And aside from that, everybody knows their place. There's times to talk. There's times not to talk. There's moments for you to speak up. There's moments for you not to speak up. And I think a lot of times where we live in Miami, bro, if you know anything about Miami, there's too many chiefs and not enough Indians. Everybody wants to drive the boat. And if they're not willing to drive the boat, they'll sink the shit.
God damn it, that was deep.
Facts.
Cheers to that, man. Jesus Christ. Let me ask you a question that's similar to the one before, and kind of just to turn it to the other side. I remember that same night and seeing you work and seeing you, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Khaled was there, or Kay was there. Yeah, Khaled, sorry. And I remember you guys being able to dissect and figure out what was wrong with a particular part of the song, and what you guys were doing, what you guys would do, which is fine. I mean, everyone can just go up to someone who's a crafty person who's doing whatever it is that they're doing, and they're going to ask them a question, and because they know and they're experts in their field, they're going to give you exactly what to hear, what to look for. It could be diamonds. Oh, this is the inclusion, blah, 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 right? In your particular field, and this is something I've always been curious about, just because I know how I've been in a huge admiration of huge producers out there, and I think that you are an insanely talented producer specifically, and you're able to merge worlds that normally wouldn't collide, like trap and with a piano beat, and then like you got like some timbal and you got some crazy shit. And I always listen to your music and I'm just like, how the fuck did you think of that? Right? Like, I can't think of that. So walk me through the process of constructing a beat from quite literally nothing. And I say that question because I've heard the Scott Storches kind of play with keys and then they kind of come up with a beat. Because I can't talk to Scott Storch or any of these people, but I feel like I'm talking to someone who has that brilliant type of mind. Walk me through a person who's an absolute moron when it comes to creating this. How the fuck do you do that?
Okay. Well, everybody has a different approach to that question. And what I mean by that is not everybody makes a beat in the same order or routine. Some people's creative juices flow differently. But when I speak in my particular case, the melody of the beat to me, in my opinion, is a big bulk, if not the majority, of what is going to catch somebody. You know what I'm saying? The percussion, is that
what first thing you think about?
The first thing I think about when I'm making a beat is the melody. Because that's everything to me. That's what I'm going to put the hook over. That's what I'm going to write a verse over. That's what I'm going to put the drums over. That's what it's, at the end of the day, that is pretty much, how do I put it?
The meat and potatoes, or the backbone.
Because that's the thing. There's people that work backwards. I've seen all kinds of stuff, and people that are super talented, they'll start with drums and then they'll create a melody over that. So there's really like no right or wrong way. But the way that I do it is the melody is almost always what grabs you. When you listen to a song, it's what you're going to remember. You're not going to remember the pattern of the kick of dum, 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 dum. You're not going to be bumping that around when you walk around the hallway. Mm-hmm. So when you listen to a song, what rides and what sticks with you almost always is the melody. So I try to always attack that first, because if you can nail that, everything else just sits over that like Nutella on bread.
Mm. Do you play with the keys and just start messing around with little things and then it kind of comes to you?
I'm not a pianist, but I can play the piano. And well, at least I speak for myself, me, Brainiac, and the people that I work with. We work a lot with all kinds of different things. For example, I'm not one way or the other way. I'll work with samples. I'll grab songs from 1957 that are a salsa song and chop it up and make a rap beat out of it. Or I'll grab a drums that me and Brainiac made in my studio and take it to another studio with my brother J Pro and add trumpets, trombones, live pianist, live drummer, live everything over a rap beat, and then have a salsa singer on it, and then have trumpets and trombones on it, and do that for 15 songs and do fucking 6 videos like that.
Deconstruct, because a lot of people, they watch a couple of YouTube videos, they hear this podcast, it's gonna have the intro on there.
Fire.
Full disclosure, Richy created this beat for me. It's the beat that you're going to hear in the beginning of this intro. It's the one that you just heard before this podcast started. He created this beat specifically because I called him and I told him, hey, Rich, I want, this very, very Miami kind of your style trappy beat. And it's something that worked so well for me, and I'm forever going to be grateful for it. But I want you to deconstruct that beat specifically because, number one, I fucking love that song.
I love it too.
Love it. But I think that it has so many elements. Maybe somewhere in Wisconsin has never heard something like that.
Yeah.
So I want you to break it down to someone who has no idea how you did that. I think that would paint a better picture of how you do it.
Let me see. I would have to say we have a piano player that is one of our really good friends. His name is Walter. He's a monster, this guy. As a matter of fact, he's Colombian.
Is he?
He is. He's Colombian.
Let's get it.
And
My people.
He's a super good person, man. And he's I consider him home team. He literally comes to my house to have a beer with me, sit down and play piano with me and Brainiac, and come up and cook ideas. And long story short, a lot of times he'll come over and he'll lay down just because I want to take advantage of the time that I have with him. He'll come down and he'll lay down a bunch of melodies, a bunch of different ideas. And then later, me and Brainiac sit down and we start working whatever we feel that we like the most. So that specific day, he showed up and I told him specifically what I wanted. I wanted it to be upbeat. I wanted it to be very alive. You know what I'm saying?
So alive.
I feel like it makes you want to dance. It makes you want to bop your head. It's like a 50-50 split of some salsa music and a rap song. So, and that's exactly what I was going for. I didn't want it to lean more one way or more the other way.
Now that you know this, and this is what you specifically went for, because I feel like it's kind of your sound.
Thank you, my brother. I appreciate it.
When did you begin to discover that sound?
It was after the album that I made with Don Dinero. We had an album called the Cuban Connection album. And on that album, I experimented with the sound, but I didn't like dive full blown into it. I was still doing trap and rap and hip hop and a bunch of other stuff. And after that album, I met Eddie at a airport.
Shout out to Eddie Ka.
Eddie
Monster.
Ka, my brother.
Monster.
And I met him at an airport on the way to go perform at the Cuban Festival in New Jersey. Mm-hmm. And I saw him in line. I didn't know if it was him because he had lost so much weight. And I was like, damn, is that him? And I had to Google him and everything to make sure that was him. And I'm like, oh, it is him. And I walked up to him. I spoke to him, took a picture with him. And then after that, we ended up linking up at the show. He was going to perform at the Cuban Festival too. So when he got off the stage, I was getting up on the stage with Don Dinero. And we shook hands. And after the show, he was like, yo, the song I have with Don Dinero is like a salsa rap song. And he was like, I do that too. And I have a couple songs like that too. I'd love to, link up. And I told him, man, he ended up coming over, I would say like 4 weeks after, because I would text him and he wouldn't hit me back. And then like a week would pass by and then he ended up hitting me back saying, yo, how does Tuesday sound? And I thought he wasn't even going to hit me back, So when he did hit me back, he showed up. And brother, after that day, we literally dove full blown into that sound. We made 14 songs that are entirely live instruments with over trap rap beats.
When did you know? When did you know that was it?
We made one with a salsa singer. His name is Marlon Fernandez. He won, like, as if to say American Idol in Spanish. It's called I forgot the name of it.
Doesn't
No,
fucking
I don't
matter.
know you. But he won a whole singing competition. Objetivo Fama is the name of it. He ended up winning that shit, and out of over 250 contestants, he won. And long story short, we made a song with him, a video with him, and after we made that, we, like, me, Eddie, and him, we all looked at each other after we made the song, and we were all like, this is really good, you know? Like,
It's like a eureka moment.
it was like, this is really good. And after that, we started just doing the same recipe. Marlon was busy doing his individual career and his stuff because last Friday, he sang on Despierta America. He's doing big things. And long story short, me and Eddie ended up repeating the recipe with various different people. And we have a lot of interesting collaborations, and it's a lot of what we're talking about now. It's a lot of the salsa fusion with rap, trap, hip-hop music, with live trombones, live instruments, live drummer, live piano, live everything. It's something that, like I say, I take so much pride in it because I haven't seen nobody do something like what we're doing right now. It's something that musically is something you can play in front of your little sister that'll be like, wow, that sounds dope. Or something you can play in front of your mom and dad that'll be like, what is that?
Are you ever, you know, a lot of times I think as an entrepreneur or someone that's just creating something, essentially not from scratch, because ultimately you're not inventing music, right?
No, definitely.
But I think that, like, in, you know, they talk about, like, as an example, like, now we credit El General with, like, creating like, you know, this sound of, like, reggaeton or whatever, and other things. And so, like, all these people who are essentially innovators in whatever it is that they do. And I'm not saying that, you know, we're going to compare this to this, but what I mean is the insecurity of just not knowing whether this particular sound, you know, because when you make it, let's say, for instance, we talk now and we're talking 5 years, and Richie, you're on a tour bus and you're like this super famous dude who developed this style. You're going to get interviewed by someone who's going to sit in this chair and be like, oh, bro, like, you're a genius. You knew what you were doing this whole entire time. But the reality is, when you're starting it and when you're creating this sound that's eventually going to be popular by the masses, it's doubted by a lot of people. And a lot of people don't believe in it, and they think that it's too segregated to one particular crowd. How do you fight through that? How do you tell yourself, this is my sound, and you're going to like it whether you like it or whether I care if you like it or not, and this is what I'm going to go with? How do you deal with that insecurity?
I think, number one, I don't use it as an insecurity, brother. I see it more as staying true to myself. Like I told you, I have that influence from my parents. I have that influence from the artists that I'm surrounding myself with. I have that influence growing up all my life. So if you know me, you know that I'm super Cuban. There's no way around it.
You are super Cuban, Richie.
And I admire it. I embrace it. I'm not somebody that I shy away from it, and I'm somebody that I think that I can do things that maybe the average rapper can't do. I can stand up on stage, and when the song stops playing, we can keep a chorus going over live drummer playing and a trombone player at a show. Like, there's a lot of stuff that not everybody. Everything with me is not just, I'm going to download a YouTube beat and do something. I'm trying to think bigger. Every song there is like a science fair project for me, so that you have an understanding. It's something that it wasn't just like, I bought a beat for $100. No. Like, we had to pay a trombone player, pay a trumpet player, pay a drummer, pay an engineer, pay a video guy. All that shit is something that, in my opinion, you have to have the vision you have to see the vision before anybody else sees it. So I'm cool with that. And at the end of the day, like I said, the bread and butter for me in relation to your question is that I'm myself. I'm being me. And I think that you can't fail when you're being something that's true to yourself, because you're being yourself.
Do you fear ever of failing because of it?
I don't, because it's not a failure. I continue to escalate and grow within my field. I've continued to work with people that have done and accomplished things I've never been able to do. I've been in the room with people that have won 2, 3, 4, 5 Grammys. I've made beats for Lil Uzi Vert. I've done a lot of interesting things in my career that I didn't think I was going to do when I was making beats at my mom's house. You feel what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I take a lot of these good and bad moments along the way as affirmations that I'm on the right path. I don't doubt myself. I don't doubt what I do. I don't doubt my team. And I don't have 6 or 7 people around me that are putting money down, that are taking time out of their schedule, that are doing everything in their power to make sure that this is going where it's supposed to go. So like I said, for a lot of people, making music is a hobby. So when you see somebody that takes it seriously, it's almost too good to be true.
It's beautiful that you just said that, because it's what I was going to ask you a question. Tell me what you would tell to a 15-year-old Richy that's maybe doesn't have it all together, maybe is trying to experiment with the usual sound like you did and went down the trap road because that's what everybody wanted. Give me something that you would tell 15-year-old Richy. He may not be 15-year-old. He may be just listening to this podcast. No idea. Trying to get into this business. Maybe grinding it like you are. Doing what he has to do. Give me something that they are going to expect that is going to be true. And give me something that they are not going to expect that they're going to quickly learn.
Something that they're going to expect.
That is true.
That is true. Is that you can't count on anybody. At the end of the day, if you really want to do something, it's on you. That you can expect.
And it is true.
And that is true. And what you cannot expect, in my case, would have to be that this is not the music making friends business. This is the music industry. So there's a lot of people that might seem like they have the best interest for you. And as I'm sure in your world, they've grabbed your right arm and your left arm and tugged you this way, say, hey, you should do this. Or, hey, you should make gold. Or, hey, you should do gold over silver only. Or, hey, you should sell Rolexes. Or, hey, you should do this. Everybody has the plan. Everybody has a solution. If that is the plan and that works, then why the fuck aren't you doing it?
I deal with
everybody has an opinion. Everybody has something to say, but nobody's put in, how you say, those 10,000 hours, those 10,000 reps, those days. And that's what I'm saying. Like in Spanish, los 15 años or 16 años que llevo haciendo música no pasaron por gusto. You feel me? I've been doing what I've
translate
been doing.
that to my guy in Wisconsin, please, Richy.
The 15,
Jesus.
16 years that I've been making music, they haven't gone by just for no reason. You know, like you've attained a knowledge in the process of doing this, and you know almost what's going to happen before it happens. When you deal with people, you can almost predict almost where it's going to go, what's going to happen, what's going to do. And then you start determining, is this worth it? Is it isn't worth it? Should I put time here? Should I not put time here? It's the same for any business. And in my opinion, I think something that's crucial for any business is time management, because that's something we don't get back. So I spend most of my day working, and when I'm done working, I keep working at the studio. And when I'm done at the studio working, I probably sleep for 4 or 5 hours, and then I'm right back at it. So I try to give myself that clearance of when I look at myself in the mirror, that I know that I'm giving everything I have to what I do, and that there's no regret. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to ever look back at my life and say, damn, I should have done this or I should have done that. And as of right now, I don't feel that, because every opportunity that I've ever been on the fence about everything, I always go with, I'm going forward with this shit. And that's been the reason why I've been able to attain the little successes that I've had in my life. And I look at them as big successes, because a lot of people even then haven't been able to do the stuff that I've been able to do, perform at the places where I've been able to perform, work with the people I've been able to work with. Not everybody's had those privileges. So I look at that, like I tell you, as affirmations that I'm on the right path.
I remember one time that we were sitting down and having a conversation back in the warehouse, and we were talking about like big artists, and I didn't really understand the industry of like music in general, and how there is huge pockets behind some of the biggest artists that you know.
Yeah.
And so I'll give you this story, and tell me if you remember this or not, because I don't know if you do. I just remember it sticking with me, and it changed how I looked at it. This was a couple of years ago. We were sitting down, and a fight came out, a pay-per-view came out, and I was like, you showed me a song that you had, and I like almost stupidly judged your song because I had just heard this other song and the artist was named J Balvin. And he came out with this song called My G. And he came out to a boxing fight. And it was the first time he released the song. The song was a banger. And he came out to this and, the fighter came out and he came out singing the song behind him. And I was like, Richie, dog, why don't you do shit like this? Thinking that I'm fucking, Rick Rubin, like a loser.
Your intentions aren't in the wrong place, brother. I understand.
And so we had this conversation, and you told me there is a huge, huge pocket behind him putting that song in front of you. And that is how most music goes into like the mainstream. That's why you hear it, because there's huge machines that are pumping this music because it's going to say, oh, well, this is the hot artist. I'm going to put it in front of you like
Instead
a sandwich.
Instead of booking a PR, imagine having a PR work your shit all day, 24 hours.
And I think that perspective changed the way I looked at music in general. So from an independent artist standpoint, how does that struggle, number one, play with your everyday life, and number two, how you create music, because you have so many things going against you, like crazy deep pockets that are willing to spend $1 million for you to come out with, whatever the rapper or whatever the boxer was.
100%. Well, the way that I look at it is a lot of times, a lot of people, in order to get that machine behind them, they have to sell their ass. You feel what I'm saying? And they have to give all their fucking rights and their publishing and their distribution and their everything up to a record label who's going to give them some money up front. And then when you end up grossing 20, 40, 50, 60, 80 million dollars, you're making that shit that you signed for. You feel what I'm saying? I've been presented with paperwork before, and I've had to say no because the paperwork is not convenient for what I'm trying to do. I don't want to be a slave. And
do you think that
and I don't want to have to perform to live my life. I don't want to have to be singing at the bar here on Friday to be able to pay my rent.
Yeah.
You feel me?
Yeah.
I do this shit because I love to do this shit. I do this shit not because I have to do this shit. You feel me? Big difference. So at least for me, like I said, I'm blessed to be able to do what I love to do.
Richie, do you think it changes the way, because sometimes I think about like very catchy choruses, or like Blink 182 had whatever the back in the day, and like even when you hear like rap or reggaeton or whatever the hell it is right now, sometimes they have such catchy melodies and such like generic shit that people are just gonna love, eat it up, right? Do you look sometimes at like the end goal, which is that? And do you feel like that changes the way you make music sometimes?
I think that if you're going to pay me, we can work that out.
So you're willing to like, if I give you $1 million, I'm like, yo, Richie, give me that banger
Richie,
on the radio.
Make me un dembow right now.
Yeah.
Bro,
you'll do it.
If you pay me $1 million, we'll do it for sure.
But do you feel like it stays true to who you are as a person? Because, I mean...
No, but at the same time, you know what I'm saying? This is part of the music industry. It's called industry because you have to make bread, bro. If not, then you're not amongst the successful. You're not amongst the elite. You're not amongst the people at the top. For example, look at, remember the rapper CJ that had the song Whoopty? Well, you know him. You've met him before.
Yeah, he's been to the shop, yeah.
And he's somebody that his first hit record was Whoopty, which was a drill record. And then what came up right after that was Un Dembow with Cherry Scombe and with El
Alfa and Noriel.
But you know what I'm saying? Like, it's a whole other world. In my opinion, do you think that CJ was born in New York wanting to grow up to make Dembow? You know what I'm saying? Like, CJ has to do what's best for his career. CJ has to make the right decisions. So in my opinion, I'm not saying that he did or that he didn't. In my opinion, I think it was a great record, and I think it was a huge success on top of everything. I think that you heard it and I heard it, whether you went to go look for it or not.
No.
You know what I'm saying? And that's part of having the machine behind you. A lot of times when being an independent artist, you don't have people that are going to put the music in your face. So that's something that you have to do. That's something that you got to bring to the table. And that's why I feel so blessed to do what I do, because it's no longer just, oh, we're downloading a YouTube beat and we're writing rhymes at my mama house. You know what I'm saying? Like, in 2 weeks, we're performing on Despierta América. We're going to be all over Telemundo, Univision, and all the English, Spanish television channels. We're going to be promoting my new single called A La Ventaja featuring Edica y El Único, which are two Cuban pillars of the urban Cuban music scene. And they're two people that have done very big things in their world. And I'm blessed to be able to share the stage with them, to be able to do the whole PR tour with them. And like I said, the goal is not to be able to hit a home run. The goal is to continue to get better. The goal is to continue to grow. And the goal is to continue to get closer to the goal every day.
Walk me through, I think it's very important that you tell this story, because I think that a lot of people, especially these young artists, specifically these under 25 age, think that, they hear the success story of, whatever artist is trending at the time, because they got that one song on SoundCloud, or they got the one song on whatever it is. What the real life experience of someone who is trying to make it, specifically an independent artist, paint a picture to someone who thinks that this is a cakewalk, because I feel like a lot of artists, specifically today.
Oh, we're going to talk numbers. You want numbers?
Yeah, I want it to be as gruesome as possible, because I think that there are a lot of people out there who think that they're going to do one song, it's going to blow up because I think we talked about it while we were at the bar just now, of like, I'm going to throw like cereal and milk on some girl's ass and I'm going to go viral and this is going to be me.
And there's a lot of that shit today, and it's cool. I don't judge whoever wants to throw cereal on their girlfriend's ass and record it.
I want to throw cereal on my
That's
girlfriend's
on you, brother. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't judge.
Sure.
But for sure, for me, I'm one of those people that, at least for me, I speak for myself. You don't want to be a jewelry guy that's known because you slapped the shit out of another jewelry guy.
Yeah,
that's the reason they know you.
Sure.
Now, does that bring you business? Yes, all that great. But is the reason for them knowing you your quality, or is the reason for them knowing you because le sonaste la cara a Pepito across the street? You feel what I'm saying? Someone. So regardless of what the reason is, some people are okay with whatever the reason is. I want to be known for the quality of the product that I bring to the table. And if you look at the videos, if you listen to the music, you can see that that's not just something that you can whip up at your mama house. You know what I'm saying? Like, it takes a team of people to come up with something like what we do. And that's why I'm so prideful. I'm so happy. I feel so motivated about the product that I have in my hands, because I've never seen anything like it. I've never seen anybody make something like what I've made.
Yeah.
I really haven't. And I've seen a lot of things that are like that, but to have a whole concept of 12 to 14 songs, 4 to 6 videos with features of people that have already done stuff within that realm and that world. I haven't seen too many people put together a product like what we're about to put out. I haven't.
And do you feel that what you're going through, are you, I guess what I'm asking is, as a person who has to go through so many of those struggles on a daily basis, on a like, not even struggles, because ultimately you've had some success. You have great success now. But someone who is just starting off, someone who doesn't have all that, do you feel like at this point where you are in your life, you've paid those dues?
I feel like I still have a lot of dues to pay.
Why though, man? I
I
know your story, bro.
Because I think that's part of the game. I think that once you feel like you stop learning and you stop wanting to grow and you stop doing all these things, that's when you really start losing, bro. Because in my opinion, I'm a student of the game still, even though I feel like a teacher and I feel like I can spread knowledge and teach you about what an ISRC code is and the difference between an ISRC and an ISWRC code is, and how to distribute your music and how to deal with your publishing and how to do with so many different factors of what factors into being an artist. There's so much more to making music than just making music. Preach. And some people don't get that it's not just about how hard your 16 is, how hard your homeboy made the beat, or it's not about that. It's about the whole package. What are you selling me? What are you bringing to the table? What do you do? You know? And that's why I tell you, like, I feel so good about what I'm doing because I really identify with the sound. I identify with the movement. I identify with being a Cuban American man of my age group. I identify with being who I am. I don't want to change who I am. I don't want to appear like something that I'm not. I don't want to live a movie. You know, and that's why I do what I do, and I love what I do, brother. And I'm never going to change what I do. This is always going to be a lane that I love to drive in. Will I always make rap and trap and hip-hop music? We grew up listening to that. I love making rap, trap, and hip-hop music. I'm always going to do it. And I've worked with a lot of people in the English world, too. And I've been blessed to be able to share the studio and create content with a lot of super talented people on that side of the line, too. My thing is just I want to do something that represents me. And I think that nothing represents me more than this.
Can you give me? And I want all the shameless plugs. I say that there's no shame in this plug. What is going on with Richy Rich today?
With Richy Rich today, as of right now, we're in the process of wrapping up the mixing and the mastering on this album that I was just talking to you about with Dedica, which by the way, the name of the album is called Yuma. And
what does that mean for I keep referencing this one guy in Wisconsin who has no idea, but I want you to paint the picture.
But long story short, Yuma is the terminology or the slang that Cuban people use to identify a tourist specifically from the United States, specifically from maybe Miami. So when you're in Cuba and you see some tourists that are from Miami show up, typically they'll be like, esos son Yuma. You understand?
Yeah.
Now they see you dressed with some dunks, that you got the Penny Hardaway jersey on, and you got 3 Cuban links on with a fucking Submariner on, and they're going to be like, él tiene pinta de Yuma. For sure. You know? And that's what I mean. The reason why we called the album that is because that word represents the Cuban American community, you know, and Eddie is Cuban, born in Cuba, and I'm Cuban American, born in Hialeah Hospital, which is like saying you were born in Cuba.
Yeah.
So
basically it's the same thing.
But you know what I'm saying. And we were really going for something that really is like a blend of his world with my world. And I don't mean his world because he's not a salsa singer, but I mean his world that he is Cuban. He was born in Cuba, so his roots really are all that sound that we mix what I do with. You know what I'm saying? Because in our reality, my department and my lane is the rap, trap, and hip-hop department. Sure. I'm not a salsa piano player. Can I play the piano and defend myself? Yes, but I'm not about to sit here and go, I'm not going to do that because that's not me. I don't know how to do that. Yeah. Now, I know what I want. You know what I'm saying? And not everybody's good at picking that. You know how many different styles and flavors of salsa there is?
I don't even want to know, but tell me.
No.
It's
Timba,
a lot.
salsa, son, cha-cha-cha, guaguancó. There's literally like over 15 to 20 different branches of what salsa is. So the cool part of what I do is that I'm doing it in a way that nobody's done it because I'm doing typical Cuban rhythms that Puerto Ricans don't do, Dominicans don't do. Like, you have to be Cuban to do the ones that we're doing. Do you understand what I'm saying?
That's fire.
So that's why, like I said, I'm super happy about that's one of the things that we're doing. And aside from that, we're about to drop a video on Saturday, April 8th, coming up now, featuring Dedica y El Único. It's called A La Ventaja, and we're going to go on a promo run on the 17th. We're going to be performing the records all over Telemundo, Univision, all the Spanish channels, the English channels, radio stations. The goal is to defend the music the same way that we spend time creating it. And I'm blessed to have both of these, like I said, pillars of the Cuban music scene accompany me on this press run. And that's what's next.
How can people find you on Instagram? Where can they follow you? Where can they go?
On Instagram, they can find me at Richy Rich 305. On Twitter, they can find me 305 Richy Rich. And everywhere else, it's Richy Rich 305 for the most part.
Richy, I want to wrap this up by telling you that, like, number one, I appreciate you coming out here.
Number one, you fucked me up with that shot.
We took a couple of shots before, but I wanna tell people that, number one, I think that you're one of the most selfless, most grateful, most humble dudes I probably have ever met in my life. I think that the passion that you have for music is so insanely contagious in just the way that you talk about it, the way you express ideas. I want to let you know that your work ethic to me is something that I probably, of all the things that you are, other than just like an honest person that I've always fucked with for such a long time, I want you to know that your work ethic to me is something that I'm like, you know, I sit back and sometimes think like, oh, if this guy's doing it, like I got to do it the same way. It's insanely, noticeable within the first 3 to 10 seconds of when you open your mouth and you start talking about the subject that you're in. You're all in. It's something that I admire an insane amount. And I want you to know that you're my friend and that I love you for being here and that I want to thank you for telling your story. But more specifically, I want to thank you for showing your passion. And I hope that people on this podcast were able to really, really feel that. And thank you for being here.
I want to take a minute and I want to say thank you for not just giving me the opportunity to be here, but for giving me the friendship that you've given me. You've always been 100 with me too. You've always been honest with me. I met you through somebody whom I love and cherish very much as well. And you're somebody that has always been very transparent and somebody that really pours into their craft. No matter what it is that they're doing, I really identify myself a lot with yourself because I see a lot of me in you in the sense of you are not a quitter. You don't take no for an answer. And you have a vision, you have a goal, and you stick to your goal no matter what anybody says, no matter who pulls you in what direction, no matter what advice anybody gives you. And I think that if you continue to follow your gut, I think that if you continue to do what you're doing, there's no way that you don't take this further than where you want to take it.
Thank you, Richy.
I'm grateful for the opportunity, and I hope you know that you have a friend in me for life, brother. Thank you.
Thank you, bro. Thank you for hanging out, and we'll see you guys in the next episode. Thanks, Richy. Peace out,
bro.